Hey, how's it going? It's another Tuesday, so it is time to get into a time machine build on Brickscale Studio. Welcome back to Brickscale Studio. Again, my name is Jeff. I'm so excited to have you with me again for another Time Machine Tuesday. So today's episode is kind of the calm before the storm. Next week we have a pretty crazy episode. There is a little bit of a mess up in this episode, which we'll get to. But today we are going to be working on the center console, and there is a minor catastrophe, but let's get into the build and then we'll talk about it at the end. So here we are with the Partwork DeLorean. Let me bring this back and kind of recap where we're at. So last episode we had a lot of wiring. We also completed, we didn't attach it to the car yet, but we completed this floor panel. We added some modifications with the carpet. We added this brake pedal that is spring loaded that will operate some brake lights down the line. And so we're going to continue. Today, I believe we're going to start working on this center console, if I'm not mistaken. So let's get into issue 41 and see what we've got cooking for today. All right, here is issue 41. So yes, we are working on the center console. We have console 1, console 2, gear stick case, the gear stick handle, and the gear stick shroud. So all the gear sticks. And then we have some screws. It looks like we're going to be working with mostly plastic pieces as we have AP and BP screws. And so this is where we are at. The instructions. And some more of the magazine. And then our parts for next time, which looks like we're just continuing to add more items to that center console that we're going to work on in this issue. So let me grab our parts. All right, so here's our center console. Let me open up the instructions here so we have center console. We have, this is kind of rubbery. This is the gear stick shroud. This is console 2. This is console 1. This is gear stick case. So then in this bag, we have the gear stick handle and the gear stick. And then we have our AP and BP screws. So let me go ahead and put the parts over here. So let's look at our instructions. All right, so the first thing we're doing is we're taking this console and we're taking panel 1. And it looks like that is going in just here, like so. And that's going to be secured from the underside with, of course, some AP screws. So let's get those open. Okay, so that is panel 1 attached. Next, we are taking panel 2, and that is going right under panel 1. All right, just like that. And then again, we are going to secure that in with, this time we're using BP screws. All right, so that's those 2 panels in. Okay, so now we're going to take the gear shift shroud. All right, so this is just going to fit over a couple of, there's a lug here and a lug here. That's just going to fit over there, no screws. Then we're going to take the gear shift, and there's sort of a pole and then this sort of ball joint thing here. We're going to push that in like so, and then we're going to take this piece, which I believe is like the gear stick case. So it can only go one way because they have these notches for these screws here. So that's going to go right there, and we're going to secure that in with BP screws. So that's going to hold the gear stick and the gear stick shroud. And then we are just going to take the gear stick handle. And there should be, yes, there is a hole on one end, and we're just going to stick that onto the gear stick. Okay, so we got that on there. You don't need to glue it. And yeah, you can actually, because this is rubberized, you can actually move it around, and this keeps it in place. So yeah, and that's not going to come off, so you don't need to glue that. In fact, once you get it on there and you push it, you hear like a little click, so you're good. So that is it. We are not doing anything more with the center console. So that is it for issue 41. So I'm just going to set this up here, which is probably where it's going to end up going eventually. So now let's take a look at issue 42. All right, so we have the time display, the LED board, and other details. So yeah, time display box, a base, an LED board and wire, a keypad, time display, compass, controls, stereo, heatsink, wire, and some screws. So again, I almost just skipped right over the magazine and went right to the build. All right, so here is our instructions. So we'll be working on those today. And again, here is some magazine, and then we're doing some, looks like some more wire work and other parts for the center console in the next issue. So here we are with issue 42. This is the time display box. This is the stereo. It's got some printed details on there. This is a base. And then in here we have, yeah, so we have a LED board and wire. This is labeled 14, so I'm going to be very careful with that and set that aside. We have AP screws and BP screws again. And then in this box, we have the time display. This is the heat sink. We have a wire, a compass, a keypad, and then some controls, it looks like, for the stereo. All right, the first step is take the heat sink, and there is a hole at the top and a lug at the bottom. What it wants us to do is take this red wire and feed it through. There are two holes right here, so it wants us to feed it through those holes. So it also kind of wants it to be sort of half and half. So I'm just going to go ahead and pre-bend it a little bit. Okay, so let's get these wires, and then we'll just pull that through so they come out the top just like so. And now we are going to take the stereo, which is right here, and then this is going to go, so there's a locating lug and a screw hole. This is going to go right on top, and we're going to screw this in with an AP screw. All right, so just like that. Now we're going to attach our controls. So hopefully this will not prove to be too difficult. These are very small. So one goes, oh yeah, these push in and they're very secure. You won't need any glue. So yeah, once you get them started, they just go in, and you can actually feel a little click and a grab in there, so those are good. Definitely not coming out. Okay, so now we have our base. So the stereo is, so there is a tab and then 2 screw holes. That's going to line this up like so. And we're going in with 2 AP screws. Secured, perfect. Okay, done and done. Now we're going to take the compass, which is this teeny little piece, and it is notched, so it can only go on one way. And it's going in with, yep, an AP screw from the other side. Now these parts I always find a little tricky because even though they do have a notch, the notch usually isn't that significant, so it still wants to kind of spin on you. Yeah, so there we go. We got the compass on. Done and done. All right, so now we want to take the time panel, I believe is what it's called. Time display, sorry. The time display. And we want to take the circuit board, and oh my gosh, I'm so nervous about this. So we want to be very, very careful. So there is a notch, you'll see here in the top of the circuit board, and that is going to match this screw hole. So we're going to place it over the screw hole just like so. So that is going to sit in there just like so. Now we do want to be mindful, we want the wire inside, okay? And there are grooves to help you line this up. And again, this is going in with an AP screw. So the main thing here is, again, you want the wire to be inside the box, not pinched on this outside edge. And there are little sort of indents that will help you line this up. Okay, so that is in. We're going to take this, which I don't know what they're calling it. That is just a base. So we're taking the base, and then we're taking this keypad, and there is a locating lug and a screw hole, and that is going to go right like so. And again, another AP screw. This one went right in. That was great. Okay, so now we have our base. So now we want to take the radio and the time display that we just put in, and we want to attach the base with the keypad facing the front. So this is the front. We want to make sure the wire goes around this post. You don't want to get it pinched in there. And then this is going to go on just like so. And there is a notch for this wire to come out. So, and we want that in with some BP screws. So make sure those are tight. All right, so that is this piece. And now we want to take our console, and this is going to go this way. And we want to feed this wire down through this hole in the center, just like so. And then there are 2 tabs that are going to fit right there, just like that. And we are going to secure that in, again, with some BP screws. Put that on there tight, and I'll make sure the other side is tight. Yep. So there we have it. So this will come out here eventually. So there we have the center console, and that is it for issue 42. And let's go to issue 43. All right, we have a button board, brackets, timed circuit box, a reset button, handles. So it looks like all sorts of stuff. Again, plastic looks like more than likely because we've got more AP screws and then we've got some FP screws. So here are the instructions. And the magazine, and then a preview of, ooh, the dashboard is coming next. So let's get the parts for issue 43. So here's our AP and FP screws. So let's just go ahead. This is a bracket. This is the time, well, maybe. This is the time circuit box. This is the power supply. And this is time circuits. In here we have the button board. So you want to be very careful. This is wires again, so I'm going to set that aside. We have an adhesive panel, which is called a plate. It's just numbered 1 through 6. This is a cover, a handle, and a reset button. So that's all there is in there. So first thing we're doing is taking the time circuit box, which the reason why there's some confusion here is because in the pictures in the instructions, it shows a bunch of scallop notches in here, but this does not have any notches. So that's why I kind of am questioning it. So then we're going to take this piece and this is going to go. There's a notch or a lug and a locating hole, so that's going to go right there. All right. So there's that piece, and then we're going to take the cover, which is this clear piece, and that's going over the top, and that is supposed to be a press to fit, but it is not very secure. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't say to glue it, and it does, like I said, it does look like there are some tabs, but I mean, they do fit in there, but it definitely does not stay. So yeah, I'm just gonna put a little on there. With this stuff, you always put a little on there and then try not to stick your fingers together. Make sure we get this on the right way. All right, so there we go. Just gonna hold that for a couple of seconds. All right, that seems secure for now. Now we want to take this handle and press it into here. Press in, it's not coming out. All right, and then we have our reset button, which will go right back here. And it looks like it is notched. Okay, we're going to push that in, and that does not come out. So now we're going to take this, I guess they're calling this a bracket. And we're taking this, and we're taking our circuit board. So yeah, these are little buttons. All right, so that's going to be secured with some AP screws. Now this makes me really nervous because we are screwing right onto this circuit board. So we want to be very, very careful not to over tighten this in any way.
Please hang up and try again.
Alright, so I did have a casualty. One of my buttons broke off because the AP screws were just not long enough to grab onto, and I ended up pushing this up and it snapped off. And yeah, I cannot get it back attached. So So yeah, that button, I guess number 4, whatever that's supposed to control, I guess I will have to use something else. I don't know. But anyway, I ended up substituting EP screws. I had a couple of EP screws which were a little longer than the AP, and they did attach this. So again, we're going to use AP screws to secure this in, and hopefully I can do this and not break anything else. So yeah, you want to hold it in such a way that you don't really have your fingers near any of these buttons, because they are really easy to snap off. Alright, so that is on. Yeah, so now this is supposed to go like so. So let me peel off the little adhesive. Alright, so we got that in. Okay, next we're bringing over our console again. And this is going to go through this hole here. Alright, that's going on there. And then 2 FP screws. Okay, so we got that on there. We got the FP screws in. And now we want to take this box with the details facing this way. And again, that's going in with FP screws. All right, cool. So this is what it should look like. Okay, so that is it for issue number 43. And let's check out issue 44. So it looks like we have a dashboard and 2 shelves and some FP screws. So we are putting that together, and it looks like that is it for this issue. Some more magazine. And then next episode we'll be diving into, looks like, some more wiring and other things. But let's get into issue 44. All right, so we have dashboard, and then shelf and shelf. So 2 shelves. So these are all plastic, of course. All right, so we're going to take the dashboard and we're going to take the first shelf, which has this little sort of notch on this end. And it looks like that is going right here, like so. And we're going to secure that from the other side with some FP screws. Alright, so there's that attached. And then quite simply, we are taking this one, which is just pretty much solid, and it's going right there. And again, we are securing with FP screws. All right, so that is the dashboard so far, and that is it for issue 44. Let's move on to the Lego. So here we are with the Lego version, and remember in the last episode we were still working on this front area, and we had completed up through steps 140, and we'd exhausted the parts in bag 4. So I have opened bag 5, and here are those parts. So let's continue on with steps 141 through 154. Alright, so that is it for steps 141 through 154. We've made this element here. It's kind of interesting. We've got some trans blue pieces, trans clear blue pieces here, and then we've got some nice chrome pieces here. So very snazzy. I imagine... Okay, so we're not supposed to do this until the next step, but I imagine this is going to go right here. but I'm not going to put it on just yet. That'll be for the next episode. All right, so let me bring back the Partwork DeLorean and we'll see where we are at. All right, so here we are side by side again. The Lego DeLorean, much smaller than the Partwork DeLorean. But for both builds, I find it interesting. We have parts that are not attached to the vehicle yet. So that's kind of interesting. For the Lego portion, we've mostly been focusing on this front end section. And then, of course, for the Partwork version, we've been focusing on this middle section with the chassis plate and the center console and now the dashboard, which I'm sure is going to come in here like this somehow, obviously. So that is it for this episode. Okay, so I'm hoping that switch debacle does not come back to haunt us down the road. I kind of have a feeling it is going to, but it is what it is. So, you know, don't do what I did. Be careful and take your time. But with that being said, let's get into the summary. So for today's episode, we completed 48 steps in the Partwork build and used 29 parts. And for the Lego build, we completed 14 steps and we also used 29 parts. So we are at, total to date, we're at 363 steps and 289 parts for the Partwork build and 302 steps and 722 parts for the Lego build. Now, I think in last week's episode, I sort of hinted that maybe up until now, we've sort of been completing right around the same number of steps for each build, but using way more parts for the Lego build. But that going forward, the steps, we might see a bigger gap in the steps, and we're starting to see that this week with a 60-step gap in between the Partwork build and the Lego build, where normally it's been about a 15-step gap. So we've been kind of even on the steps, but, you know, the parts have been off. Now we're getting into more detailed Partwork issues. And by issues, I don't mean problems. I mean issues of parts and steps that we're doing. And so they're becoming more complicated, as we will definitely see next week. Next week is a crazy episode. It's a longer episode, and there are a lot of steps in the last issue, issue 48. Normally we average, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 steps per issue. I think issue 48 has like 29 or 30 steps. So the Partwork is getting a little more complicated, and we're using, we're not necessarily using more parts, but it's definitely getting complicated. So you'll see that next week. I don't want to belabor the point. But until then, happy building, take care, be kind to each other, and I'll see you soon.